Welcome to Empowered Through Compassion podcast. If you are interested in the intersection of trauma healing, compassion, and personal transformation, this is the right place for you. Join me, David, and my wife, Heather, along with other clinicians, trainers, authors, and leaders in this evolving world of trauma healing. Through compassionate conversation, we look at powerful therapeutic approaches such as internal family systems, IFS, EMDR, and motivational interviewing to see how they can lead us to deep and lasting healing. Please join our Lunch, Learn, and Live stream, a free opportunity to connect with the ETC community. These are held on the second Tuesday of every month at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. For the next 4 months, we will speak with a panel of authors from the newly released book, IFS Informed EMDR, Creative and Collaborative Approaches. Check out the ETC website, empoweredthroughcompassion.com, and click on live stream to see our guests and to register for each event. Please remember that this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. If you are seeking support for your own healing, I encourage you to reach out to a trained professional. So great to have you here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. This is David. You have tuned in to Empowered Through Compassion, the podcast, and I am here with an interview that I am super excited to have. So it's going to be really wonderful. It's with Sarah Cameron. And I don't know, Sarah, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah Cameron. I am a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers, MINT, which essentially means I'm a big MI geek and I love it. It is like a whole part of my being. Um, and let's see, what else would you want to know about me? I started with a group recently. We are called Amiga. So we are the Alliance for Motivational Interviewing, Growth, and Advancement. Yeah, so it's a bunch of us from Mint, and we have come together. We've written a couple of books together, and we're kind of like rethinking the way MI is learned and how it's lived. So lots of new and exciting, kind of innovative, shaking things up a bit ideas. But yeah, that's the main me that is here today, I guess.
I love that. And welcome. Welcome. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We were talking before and we both said, let's just jump in, let's have a conversation. I feel like for this podcast, it's a little bit of a turning point, a little bit of a pivot. And I was waiting to have you here because I've been doing a lot of work with EMDR and IFS
Mhm.
informed EMDR. And so my audience, if you've been here a while, you should totally know what I mean by, merging those two beautiful models. And then I was really thinking like there's this other third model that kind of makes it the trifecta, which is just this beautiful addition to IFS EMDR, motivational interviewing. And as I kind of sat with that and thinking about where I wanted my podcast to go, where I wanted my professional development to go, I figured this would be such a beautiful addition to all the stuff that I've been working on. And I had my trainer back in 2016, Stephen Andrew, who is amazing. He has his own podcast. And then I'm looking through what's out there, and your name popped up. It came to the surface where I saw the book, and you have a couple of books, but you have the book, The Aspirational Spirit of Motivational Interviewing. And I felt like, what a beautiful place to start as we're talking about motivational interviewing to really understand the spirit, to really get some conceptual foundations with it. And so I reached out to you, and lo and behold, you were amazing and awesome, and we connected, and it was fun, and we talked about all of this. And so, of course, it's like let's have you on the podcast. Let's geek out, nerd out about
Yes.
motivational interviewing, about the space, about maybe what it could bring to trauma and just
Yeah.
your journey on motivational interviewing.
Yeah,
My
sure.
first question, my first specific question is in your book. Um, I was looking at it, uh,
Oh,
and I
you
love
even
it.
have it with
I
you. I
loved your
love that.
book. Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
thanks so
on
much. Yeah,
page
it's a bunch
two,
of us. Yeah.
well, it's a bunch of you. Yes,
It's a
I should
bunch of
say that.
us. Yes.
Is Alexander Waite,
Wait,
you,
yep.
Sarah?
So it's David B. and then Anna B. Jordan and then Alyssa Galetto.
The people that are new to it, it's a great kind of refresher or just, interesting thoughts to put out to people who know motivational interviewing and really want to dive into the spirit. Um,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a small book, so it's not
It
like
is. It
you're going
is.
to
With
spend
bigger print
months and
even.
months on it. Bigger print, that's right. Color, there's color in it.
There's some color in there. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay, so you say this, or I should say, all of you say this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Through this book, we aim to create a virtual community of support, encouragement, encouraging you to embrace the aspirational nature of MI spirit, not as a destination to reach, but as a direction in which to grow. And that
Yes.
really hit
Yes.
me.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. That is exactly what we were hoping for. There's so much to unpack there. Like we wrote this book because we had this idea that in MI, in the MI world, the spirit is talked about so much, which anyone who's not totally a geek like maybe you and I are, the spirit is partnership, compassion, acceptance, and empowerment. It's like a vibe you bring to conversations you have. But in the MI world, people talk about it like you can just get it and then you're a master and you're good at it every single day, day in, day out. And that's just not reality. That's not true. And the five of us who wrote this book were like, you know what? We got to write about this because there's got to be a different way to conceptualize this. There's got to be a way to practice. It's got to be like a thing we can reach for each and every day. It doesn't have to be something where it's like, check the box. I've got it. I'm good at that now every day. I don't think that's true for anyone unless they're like an AI robot or something. But even then, I'm not sure that they can embody those things. But yeah, we
I
wanted
would
to
say
write
they
about it.
can. I would say you need a human heart, and that even in the back of your book, it has a quote from William Miller, who is one of the
Bill Miller.
co-founders. Bill
Yeah.
Miller, yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't really know him well enough to say Bill, but
Oh, trust me,
I
he would
hope to
say,
reach
call me
out to
Bill.
him.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
from Bill has a quote, and he says here to make it. That's where we began writing about the essential mindset and heart set of MI. So I love
Mhm.
that. And I don't think, I mean, that could take us on a whole nother path of conversation, but
Yeah.
AI, it doesn't have that heart set. And we need that
No.
heart set.
Yes. Yes. It definitely. And you know what's funny? I don't want to knock it too hard because there are some people in the MI world who are working to create AI around MI, but the AI they are creating that at least that I've seen is all around like learning how to have an MI conversation. So it's like for learners who are learning MI, which I find very different than someone who's like coaching or counseling or a therapist. Um,
Hmm.
I don't think AI can be that, but anyway, you're right. That could be a whole other thing.
Sitting with pace and the spirit,
Yep.
it's like just the word pace to me is
Hmm.
like the perfect place to begin because it's
Hmm.
like, how do we slow down the pace? In
Yes.
IFS, they say going slow is fast. So it's
Uh-huh.
like, how
Slow
do we
down to
take
speed up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So how do we just take a pause and really dig into like what spirit are we bringing into this realm here?
Yes. Yes. And the way we've like kind of conceptualized it. So we have this book. We also have a on our website now. It's sort of like a check-in with yourself where you can check in on your partnership. You can check in on your compassion. Like, where am I at today? So you could do that like pre-jumping into a session if you're a therapist, say, or whatever you do as a helper. Or you could do it post if you're like, ooh, I was really off today. Like, where was my compassion today? Ugh, that felt awful. You can take that sort of, I don't want to call it an assessment. It's like a check-in with yourself. Like, what happened there? What was I
Yeah.
missing? That you had said, like, I want to be able to check in with myself with the pace. Where am I at today with my pace, my spirit, all of that ball of goodness? Where am I at before I get into things? In our crazy world, we don't really do that at all anymore. We don't, most of us don't take a
Well,
minute
I
to just slow
agree. We don't
down.
really have the time to do that. There's just so much on our plates every day.
Yes. Yeah. And we all know, and this is like half the reason we created this too. yeah, compassion sounds nice and lovely, and we all think it's a part of us, which it is for most of us who are helpers. It's just kind of innate, a natural part. But what happens when you're in a role? I know a lot of people who are mental health and wellness coaches, and they take call after call after call after call, half hour chunk, half hour chunk, half hour chunk. What happens after you've had six of those in a day and you're feeling like you've heard like really heavy stuff all day? Bam, 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 and then you're about to get on your next call. Your compassion might not be, that tank might not be fully level today. So we
Yeah.
like to think that things like compassion are like, oh yeah, of course I'm compassionate. I'm in the helping field. But there's moments where maybe it's harder. Yeah, we wanted to create this as a way to like check in on yourself, to look ahead at a session that's coming up, look back if you've had one that felt pretty rocky. It's just like a thing that the spirit is a thing to like work toward, to keep thinking about each day and checking in with yourself. And it's never like check that box and we're golden kind of deal. But
Yeah. You're talking my language. And this is where I bring in IFS because
ooh,
I feel
yeah.
like we could really check in with each of our parts too. You know, if we have different parts inside of us that are protecting us or are hurting, or, the exiles, the little children, we could kind of on a moment to moment basis, or at least in a check in kind of space, check in with like, how are my exiles doing? Could I bring a little bit of this pace spirit to them?
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. So tell me more about how you envision that like pairing, that concept.
Well, because I see the three models, EMDR, IFS, motivational interviewing, as very aligned in a lot of ways. So I'm dying to hear your thoughts about this, and I definitely really respect, the wisdom that you bring to this. So I'm curious what you think. But are you familiar with IFS?
I'm just very lightly like IFS
Okay.
light. So yeah, anything you can give me, I'll take.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. I'll share all of it. And if it's too much, tell me. Or if it's repetitive, tell me. But they have this concept of self in IFS. So that's one of the things that I think it really brings to the field of parts work, where you have the parts of us that you could listen to, and all of us have our own ways of seeing, feeling, relating to our
Mhm.
parts. So this is more just like a framework of like categorizing some of the parts, where
Mhm.
IFS specifically has names for some of the categories. It talks about firefighters, managers, exiles, but it's really just understanding, what are these parts? What are their roles? And
Mhm.
then when the parts really feel heard, witnessed, seen, there's a relaxing. And as they relax
Mm.
back, there's this other spirit that comes up inside of ourselves. And IFS calls that spirit the self with a capital S, the
Okay.
self. So we're trying to, or I think one of the goals of IFS is to really embrace this self spirit and to um, allow our parts to feel a connection and a relationship with this self spirit.
Mhm.
So, what I'm kind of suggesting, I guess, is that there's a lot of um, connection and similarity between this self and the spirit of MI. And MI
Yes.
calls it pace. They call it the eight C's of self. So
Okay.
what Dick Schwartz says is that he's like Bill. He says, "Call me Dick." Richard Schwartz. So Dick Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz, says that the eight C words that show you that self is present is compassion. So there's already overlap.
There you go.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, curiosity, connection. Well, I'm testing myself down to see if I got all eight of them. Um, calm, clarity, courage,
Hmm.
confidence, and I'm missing one, but so there's eight C words, and
Hmm.
so kind of diving into, I don't think we could just contain it in like four words of
Yes.
pace or eight
No.
words of C's. I think it's
Yep.
more a spirit that we feel into, and I think
Uh-huh.
both models are really tapping into, that spirit that we have
Yes.
within ourselves, and we could give both to ourselves and our own internal system, as
Yep.
well as towards to other people.
Oh man, there's so much there. Yeah, because I get to thinking about if you even think about one of the elements, like let's say partnership. Like to honor partnership, you have to be curious, which is one of the C's you mentioned. Um, to really honor that empowerment, which means drawing out from what's already within someone. We believe it's already within them. We just draw it out. To do that, we have to have like try to gain clarity on their perspective, their experiences. It's their life. They're the people who are in charge. They're in the driver's seat. Um, all of that is like speaking the same language. It's the same idea. What's new to me is what you were describing of like the different, what you call them parts, right? Different parts.
IFS calls it parts. Yeah,
Parts.
it's like
Okay.
sub personalities within us. Like
Yeah.
we have um I actually think there's more, but IFS would say there's three categories. And one is called firefighter, which is very reactive to something. So it's
Mm,
like something happens and our nervous system gets activated. So this wants to keep us safe, kind of
hmm
fight or flight. It could keep it. It's a firefighter is usually like, an addiction that we might have. That's a firefighter energy to numb us out, to just in that
mm,
moment be like, I need to focus on survival and not feeling pain and just feeling like, whatever is happening, I need to push away the pain or overcome it.
okay.
So that's the firefighter. The manager is more like um, proactive. So instead of
Okay.
being reactive, the manager is like, how could I plan so that I never have to feel pain again? What could I
Mm,
do so that in the future, I'm not going to have this same situation occur again? And
yeah.
and both of those roles are really trying to protect an exile who's like these inner children that we have that are holding on to the pains, the traumas, the hurts, and that's like the burdens. Like the burdens are
Okay.
like the traumas. So they're the identities. And if you look at it through an EMDR way, they would be the identities in our system that's holding on to the negative cognitions or the
Mm,
trauma memories. And so you
okay.
have this protective layer, and then you have this hurting layer. And so slowly, what we're wanting to do is get permission from the protective layer through a relationship to
hmm
connect with these inner children and be able to really honor them, witness, see them so they could let go of what they're
Mm,
holding. And we
yeah.
do it through connecting them to the therapist's self energy, like the therapist knowing how they could stay in self
hmm
energy, and then activating the self energy within the client.
Interesting. It's almost like lending some of it as the therapist. I use that word intentionally because Bill Miller talks a lot about lending hope. Like we can, if someone doesn't have it quite within them yet, we can lend some of our own to them. I have like a vision. I'm a very visual like thinker, and I have a vision of like there was something that was like at the center of it all, which to me sounded like the authentic acorn, like the core, the person is in the middle of
Yes.
all of that. I
Yes.
don't know. Am I thinking in the right way there?
That's how I see it. That's how I mean, I think we could call it heart energy. I think we could call it like our authentic self. What IFS has been doing, which is really attractive to my system, is they lean into like a spiritual kind of element of like self is like this connection that each of us have with the divine
Oh,
and with like this
okay.
timelessness. And like we all have it. It never leaves us. It's never broken. Which again
Mm,
sounds a lot like what EMDR says and what MI says. Like we each have this beautiful part, no matter how damaged we are. It's
hmm
just that when we have burdens or traumas, it becomes clouded.
Yep. Yep.
And so how
And
do
okay.
we allow unblending to happen with the clouds and with the parts so that we could access this pure part of ourselves?
Yeah, there's so much overlap of everything you're saying. I can only imagine that if a therapist, counselor, coach, whoever you're talking about, is coming into a conversation with their MI pace tanks full, like I'm doing well with my partnership, I'm doing well with my whatever. My tanks are full and coming in. They are then able to kind of lend that and like present that out and lend to the other person so that they can start to like decloud, like find some clarity in the things that you're talking about so we can kind of like unpack and explore and heal more. That makes a lot of sense.
So I guess the first question is, do you feel like MI fits in? And then like, how does it fit in?
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely do. And I can like hear Bill Miller's voice in my head because I play this video a lot in my trainings with Bill Miller. And he says, MI is a way of having a conversation with people about change. And that's change and growth. And that's it. That's all it really is. And what you're talking about is change and growth, right? And it's change and growth amongst those parts that you were talking about. But it's going to take that clarity to get there. It innately has to be a part of what you're talking about. Like at least the spirit does. The other skill sets come along with it, like the open questions, affirmations, the ors, the reflections.
Yes, yes.
They come, they're like tied to it. But I don't think you could have the kind of conversations you're talking about and explore those parts without coming in with the MI spirit. I don't think that that's possible because I don't know how people would like fully feeling connected or feeling that compassion to find that clarity unless you come with that spirit. I don't think that's
Yes, yeah.
possible. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. What's coming up for me is a question because I think IFS, and this is where I really love IFS and feel like it adds a lot to this discussion, is it actually has very clear steps on how we could open up ourselves and others to this self energy. Does
Hmm.
MI have any kind of thoughts about how we increase the pace within ourselves or within others?
Good question. So until now, we have not had a way to kind of like check in or grow our partnership, acceptance, compassion, empowerment. And that's actually one thing that Bill wrote in our book. And he wrote, this is the missing element. This is the missing piece. Um, yeah, so I think it's a lot about, there's a couple of things that are coming to mind right now. It's a lot about growing um, and aspiring for that MI spirit, like we've been talking about in our book. Um, Kind of keeping your finger on that pulse. I think a lot of folks lose track of it even. They like forget or something. I don't know what, but keeping your finger on that pulse. And if we want to like kind of branch out a bit, there's another book that we just released called Becoming MI. And in that book, it's this idea that eventually MI, the spirit of MI, the way you interact with people, the way you walk through the world becomes part of your fabric, like becomes part of who you are as a person and your being. And you can't really be any other way if you tried. um, yeah, so I think there wasn't until now a way to check in on the spirit. In fact, I know that because Bill himself said that. This was the missing piece that we at Amiga apparently came up with, and we're working on kind of expanding and making it accessible for everybody. But I think like a bigger thing that we're sort of dancing around is how to become that, how to not how it becomes something that's not just a task, that isn't just something you do, it's just something you are. And I feel like there's overlap there with the MI becoming that we're talking about and what you're talking about as well as like learning about the different parts so that you can become that person, that being, that entity that's in
Yes,
there.
yes. No, I
Yeah.
love that because I've been leaning into that quite a bit of like definitely with IFS, but I'm hearing you say it with MI as well. Like it becomes a way of life and it becomes
Yes.
like, and this is where IFS sees it almost as like a spiritual practice. Like there could be
Yes.
like a daily meditation around like checking in with where are my parts, how am I feeling inside? And or in MI language, like a daily meditation around like, where am I at with the pace, both
Yes.
internally and externally?
Yeah. And I assume like I know if I were to start doing that right now today, it would be conscious like effort. Like I would have to really think about doing like where am I at today? Let me check in. But I assume eventually the hope, I guess, the ideal would be that you wouldn't, that it would just kind of naturally flow and you would check in with yourself. You would like try to make sure that you have that clarity that you need. I don't know. I feel like yes, that eventually it's like becoming IFS, becoming motivational interview. Yeah, they're very
Yeah,
similar
I see it more
ideas.
as like a moving spectrum. I don't see it as like we become more and more of it. It's more like just that awareness and maybe if anything,
Hmm.
like becoming that awareness of like how
Yes.
much do I need to protect myself in this moment or how much are my parts activated. So it's not like we're going to get to a place where we never have parts or we're always in self, but it's more
Mm-hmm.
always kind of moving along and being aware of like how much self do I have in this moment and how much
Yeah.
parts energy do I have in this moment and how could I hold like that dialectic of like
Hmm.
both being present at the same time?
Oh my gosh, imagine what that would do for the world. I'm
Oh,
sure
I
that's what
know.
drew you to
I
this. Is
know.
like if people were able to do that,
Yeah.
how different would interactions be on the daily? Every interaction would be very
Oh my
different.
God. Yeah. Yeah, that would be amazing. But we do it one person at a time. And we start with ourselves. We start with ourselves.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because here's a question that's been swirling in my head. There's so many reasons that I love motivational interviewing, but one of the biggest ones is I see the difference it can make in communication with people, and it's like a domino effect. When the communication is that different in a really positive way, there's ability to change and grow, and people can become like their best selves, and then they can contribute their best selves to the community and the people around them. It's like it keeps getting
Oh
better and
yeah.
better and better
Yes.
situation. But I wonder, like, what drew you to this line of thinking that you're describing today? Like the IFS, MI, EDM, like all of that, like combine, where did you envision it going? Like, what did you envision it being? What drew you to this like concept that you've created?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I learned MI 10 years ago, and it really, the way it was taught to me by Stephen Andrew, it really spoke to me. It really spoke about, how do we incorporate like language
Hmm.
to allow somebody to really feel heard and really feel like we're connecting with them on this really deep level. And so I don't think I really had the skills up until then to really
Hmm.
fully understand like how do we sit in a space of the spirit where we're really allowing the other person to transform and grow in this really beautiful way. And I remember I
Yeah.
had the class, I was practicing the oars, and then right after the class, I went into a family with two mothers, and I was like trying it out. And all of a sudden, it like opened up our dialogue where they started to share all of this stuff just
Uh-huh.
because I was like, reflecting. I was complex reflecting with them. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
wow, this is like powerful tools that have just leveled me. So then
Yeah.
I started having groups with other therapists where I was at because my supervisor was very into MI. So I started having, with him, just sitting with people in our agency and practicing talking, listening, having the
Hmm.
conversations. So I was always really passionate about it. Fast forward to 2020, um, my wife encouraged me to do some trauma stuff because I'm fascinated by it. I needed some CEUs. So I took EMDR and I was like, this is cool. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people want it. I tried it
Yeah.
in the past, didn't really work too well, but I'll try again. And, um, and I loved it. I got all excited about it, but I didn't quite understand it. And so I was talking with the group that I was in from the class, and somebody recommended IFS. So all
Hmm.
of a sudden I did IFS, and it just like leveled it up. Like all of a sudden I could understand the language for the EMDR. And then
Yeah.
I met my consultant who does IFS informed EMDR. We wrote the book. We just, it was like this whole huge thing. And then, of course, once you write a book, I don't know if you feel this way, but there's a little bit of like addiction to it where it's like, oh, I got to write another book. Okay, I have
Uh-huh.
this out. Now I got
Now
to
we
think
have
of
this
another thing to
idea.
write about. And so I'm thinking, well, what do I want to do? And he, in his model and his institute, he combines three models: EMDR, IFS, and coherence therapy, which is
Okay.
fascinating. And so I was thinking, like, I had a little bit of difficulty getting into coherence therapy. I think there's some beautiful things about it, But I was
Mhm.
thinking, what if I try instead IFS, EMDR, and motivational interviewing, and then kind of bringing that into couples work? And I don't know. I think it's just, to me, it feels like I'm just playing in a sandbox and
Yeah.
trying to like piece it together, see if it works, create something cool. And the more people that I talk to, it feels like there's something there where those three
Hmm.
models do come together. So I think it's more like, if it's fun, I like to do it, and if it's not fun, why bother? So there's something
Yeah.
fun in my mind to play with, like how these three models come together.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like also you're seeing it come alive real life too. You're seeing like potential and impact in real time, in real life, people.
Yes. And
Interesting.
and I think that I have a feeling, and I'm curious what you think, but it feels like with our field, there's a lot of silos in terms of like my model, this is my
Oh,
community.
yes.
And I'm
Oh,
like,
yes.
I want to be a bridge. I want to be a bridge. And I definitely get
Yeah.
pushback. But I think my goal is to create like a
I
meta
bet.
framework where it's
Yeah.
like we should all be leaning into the similarities between what we're all saying, as opposed to being like my words, mine, my model. It's like, okay, but
Right.
we're really talking about similar things. And we open up so many more dimensions when we
Yep.
connect them together.
I'm so glad you used that word. I kept thinking about what word was in the back of my brain as you were talking. I'm like, this is a different dimension of this like interaction, this correlation, and this like combination. That's opening up a different dimension. We could be like better humans in general,
Yeah,
better helpers, better everything, better communicators, all of it. The MI world is so different from a lot of the other, from what I know of like different therapy modes and models. People in MI, and you have to literally almost, it's almost like signing a contract when you join Mint that like you live by generosity and you live by like, we are here to support each other and share. No one owns this. Like, we're open to new ideas. We're open to sharing how we train. We're open to sharing all sorts of things. It's like, I think that's the one of the more beautiful things about MI and the people who are MI geeks like myself. It's like we're always willing to like, yes, let's see where this fits because MI is described as a model that can be fused with different modalities of therapy, like MI and
yeah.
CBT, MI and IFS, MI and like DBT. You can combine MI, you can kind of like filter it in, infuse it in to different therapy modalities. So yet another thing I just love about MI, it's just so welcoming and like people in the MI world want it to be a part of other things because we see the potential. I think like
That
you're
is
definitely one of those
beautiful.
people.
That's beautiful. I mean, yeah, that's integrationalism. But there's definitely pushback in EMDR
Uh-huh.
open. There's some camps that are more open, some camps that are not.
Yes.
IFS is this incredible model that's like, no, you
This is
need to be
ours.
pure. This is
Hmm.
this is ours. Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, that's an exile talking, right? That's a trauma
Yeah,
wound
right.
that they're holding on with the model to feel like we
Uh-huh.
want to be, we want people to see the beauty of it. There's pushbacks and articles and other things. But my whole thing is like, okay, I might be a little bit on the fringes, but I definitely want to challenge that.
Yes. And you know what though? Some of the best stuff in history has come from people like you doing that exact thing and being like, let's challenge us a bit. Let's think outside the box. Let's do something a little different. There's also been some weird things that have come of that, but like
Yes.
I think there has to be people like you, and honestly, like I'm doing with my Amiga folks, is like you have to challenge. Otherwise, where is the growth? Where is the change? Where is like and society changes, so why wouldn't our therapy modalities and our like how we communicate obviously is changing. We're getting AI going on. So like we have to keep growing and changing too and like being open to it, or at least that's what I think. But
I'm curious. I got a this is a little bit of a tangent here, but what you're saying is bringing this up. I met this one guy who was really, really cool. And Tyrell, he wrote the book on MI and couples therapy.
okay. Yeah, I don't know a lot about that. That's why the name isn't familiar to me. Yeah.
Okay. So I reached out to him because his book is amazing, and I wanted to see how this all fits into couples therapy. And he said, if I'm remembering him correctly, is that there's kind of two camps within MI. And there's the one camp, and I think you and him are on opposite camps, which is really exciting for me.
Uh-oh.
But he said, and no, no, neither one of them is bad at all. But I if and please tell me this is correct. I'm hearing your camp is what he was describing as somebody that feels like MI is a way of life. This is a way of showing up in the world. And that's where
Yep.
I was at. And he
Yep.
said that's not necessarily wrong, but he totally doesn't believe that.
Huh,
Which so I'm
interesting.
really into
Yeah.
I'm working through his book. It's his book has been I've been really sitting with it because I want to know it well and then reach out to him
Yeah.
again and have this
Yeah.
conversation. But he said he really sees Ebi as a mode of therapy that you can't
Mm.
necessarily teach people to do MI with each other. You're using it very explicitly for like this is a type of therapy that you need
Hmm.
a therapist who's trained as a therapist to and he was talking about couples. So I'll put that
Sure.
caveat.
Maybe different.
But
Yeah.
he was like, that the oars and the spirit is like 20%, but all the
Mm.
other stuff is really like things that is more like a way of doing therapy. And so I'm definitely not
Hmm.
saying this to you
Interesting.
because I'm like, ooh, let's get two people into a fight. But I'm saying it to more I'm saying it more as like I'm struggling with what side I kind of feel because I don't know. And I'm
Yeah.
curious how you would
Mm.
respond to something like that.
There's so many things that are coming to my head as you say that. Um, there's different aspects of what he might have been describing, and I'm not sure. I didn't, I don't
And
know.
I
This
might
is a
not know
guess.
either, so that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, there is a way to do MI. They call it to fidelity. Like we can code MI. We can see how well someone actually is using MI spirit, MI auras, yada yada. There's a couple different ways to score that and like see how well are they actually doing it. So yes, so I can see where he might have been kind of alluding to that of like you can't just use some MI and call it good. Like yes, it takes a lot of practice and feedback. I don't agree that it is a therapy, and in fact, Bill Miller specifically says it's not a therapy, and he is that's what's in the latest in my book, which I'm sure you have or have looked into it. But
It's like the fourth
um,
edition.
fourth edition, it came out in
Yeah.
23. But
Yes.
basically, Bill came out and said this edition specifically we changed so that it was available to anyone who's a helper. You don't have to be a therapist. You don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be any. You could be somebody who's a teacher, a life coach, whatever doctor.
Oh,
Like we don't
interesting.
want this to
Interesting.
be just for therapists anymore. And so that's why the language in the fourth edition changed because they started using the word
Mm.
helper. Um, Bill has even said in the past he doesn't like to use the word provider because we are not providing when we're in the MI mode. Um, yeah.
Interesting.
So anyway, like that's so all these things that I'm saying right now make me sort of disagree with the concept that um, MI is a therapy and that it only should be used in specific kind of like ways or modes. I think Bill specifically has said it is for anybody who's a helper, and we want it to be available and accessible to anybody who helps other people.
But I'm curious if he's talking primarily about couples, and I think this is where what couched our conversation. And I was
Yeah.
saying, isn't it beautiful to teach couples how to use the spirit, how to use the oars with one another? When can't that be a game changer within for couples to be talking with each other? And his
Yes.
response was, no, there's a fundamental difference between couples being in conversation with each other than them being in a conversation with a therapist there to guide them, because you need to be able to not have investment in what the couple is and I guess the outcome or where they're heading, because then you are there neutrally for each of the couples and for the couple as a whole. And by definition, you can't do that when you're in a relationship and you have specific skin in the game, so to say, when you're in a
Mhm.
couples. And to me, that was a very new way of looking at it. And there's a piece of me that feels like here's my IFS. There's a piece of me that's it has ambiguity and is saying like But can't you still teach them? Can't you
Yes.
still teach the couples to
Yes.
be able to? And isn't that the heart of MI? Is really
Yes.
like, no, it's not 20%. This is the heart of MI, is the spirit, is
It
the
is.
ability to have a
Yes.
conversation where you're putting yourself aside for a moment, even just a
Yep.
moment, having space for the other person, and then you have space in the conversation. So I thought, why not talk to one of the authors of the book of Spirit of Motivational Interview and see how you weigh into that.
Yes. That's so interesting too because um I'm thinking about how it depends on how you define outcome. Like if you're invested in the outcome, anyone who knows MI at all knows like you're not supposed to do MI with your family members because you are invested. For example, like my mom and I had a conversation about like end of life plans and things. I'm not going to use MI and have that kind of conversation with her because I have an investment in what she does there. I want her to do X, Y, Z.
Mm,
So yes, I'm
mm,
not going to do that. I'm not going to use MI in that space. And maybe that's kind of what we're dancing around here. Is like MI isn't for every
yeah.
conversation and every like space either. Um,
Mm,
there is a place for a therapist to help their couples that they're working with learn some MI skill sets because they're invested in the outcome that the couple wants. If the couple wants to communicate better and have fewer fights, and the therapist goes to say, let's work on reflections because that could really help you be present and understand
yes,
each other.
yes.
They're not invested in the couple staying together. They're not invested in like the couple doing any. Oh, I'm invested in them doing that so that they whatever have a baby. I don't know. They're not invested in a specific outcome. They're invested in the outcome that the couple wants. The couple came to you wanting that thing. And as a therapist, coach, helper, whoever you are, you're bringing that compassion. You see people suffering, you want to help alleviate it, and you're not invested in what happens in the end with them. You're invested in helping them get to where they want to be.
I think there is some alignment there with what he's saying, what you're saying. I just think there's a different focus where I think, and now, okay, so he's works with couples who are sexual minorities, but basically there's a very specific thing that he has been researching where I think he does have a huge investment on
There
having
you go.
specific change for the
Yep.
conversation that he's having. So,
Yes.
so that change talk becomes like he was talking more about like the focusing, the evoking, like some of those
Hmm.
things where it's like I'm really focused in on change talk and how to
Yes.
help them get a specific outcome, which is why
Hmm.
that's what I would not want to see people using in like he said there's so many other models on communication.
Oh, for
There's so many other
sure. For
ways of
sure.
like helping couples that MI for him was more about specifically that change talk.
Yeah. Interesting. There's a lot of talk in the MI world too about of this. Some people call it MI light. Like I'm gonna do MI light, which is like I'm not full blown like having an MI lens conversation. I do this a lot because I work in research. I'm an interventionalist, and
Interesting.
so we are aimed at a specific thing, and we're hopeful that people will kind of lean a certain way. So yes, I use my MI pace, but I'm not gonna like use open questions and reflections to guide a conversation to get them to do something. That's exactly what we're not doing in MI. We're not using MI to get people to anything. Yeah, and I can see where he's saying that. Like I don't want to use MI in a conversation to get this person to talk more about this with this person.
My thought is we use MI to for change talk and for specifically to get an outcome, and that couples can use that with each other. The question is, what is the outcome? If the outcome
Exactly.
is purely
Exactly.
to increase the pace, to increase the self energy, that is a beautiful outcome, and they can use
Exactly.
that for that outcome. But then you would have to lean into people know what's best for themselves. So if you
Yep.
really truly believe, even a couples that want different things, if you believe both couple individuals know what's best for themselves and the best way that they could show up for the relationship, you could dig into, I want you to change, but the change that I'm trying to get at through change talk is for you to be more in touch with your authentic self. And
Yes.
that's hard, right? That takes a
Yes.
lot of meditation and being in touch with yourself.
Uh-huh.
But if that's what we're going for, fuck it.
Yep.
Use MI.
Yes.
Change away. Change
Exactly.
away.
Exactly. But you said it more like eloquently than I did. That's exactly what I was getting at. Like if we are in our MI spirit and we're not using MI to get people to like manipulate, to sell something, we're not using it in all the unethical ways. We are using it to draw out what they want for themselves and that
That's
change and
right.
growth, then there should be nothing wrong with that. If that's what they want, and I'm thinking like this is like my own little personal snippet with my couples therapist, my therapist who's there for my husband and I. She has like worked on reflections. Yes, I have to work on reflections too in my personal life, but she has used that strategy for us so that we have better communication because that's what we wanted. Like, so I don't see what's wrong with that if we're using MI in the ethical way that we're taught to use it.
Does that same logic, could we apply it for like evoking and allowing it to like
Yes, yeah,
guide the client to where they want by really focusing on their change talk
yeah.
and having a little bit more of that direction?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
in that regard, I think it still applies. But if we're getting into that level, could we really still use some of those techniques to really draw out the change talk if our
Oh
goal is
yeah.
really just to have more, pace?
Yes, we absolutely could. Yeah, especially if we're still talking about like couples level, of course we could. Of course we could. Like if there are ways to ask like open questions that get at a desire, that get at a need, that get at a reason. There's specific like ways you can ask strategically an open question to draw out a desire statement from a person. Um,
Fascinating.
it, yeah, and we like the whole, I think like to kind of like put a come back around on this, put a bow on it. We wouldn't want to do that if you're in the therapist and you're thinking in your head, I really want to get them to say, I want better communication with my spouse. So I'm gonna ask this question to get them to say, I want that change talk that we're talking about. That's when it's wrong. That's when we're
That
like,
feels like it's
I'm
manipulative.
I'm manipulating. I'm getting them to do what I
Yeah.
want them to say, what I want them to say. Not only is that like terrible, that's unethical and just yuck, but like we know that if someone is manipulated into things, the more we push and pull and tug people, the more they're going to dig in their heels.
That's
So
not going
like
to
not only
work,
is it
right?
wrong,
It's not
it's
going to
not going to
work.
work. That's just
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much to that too.
To be continued. It's such a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yeah, I want to learn
Thank you.
more. I've learned a lot through you. Like this has been fascinating. It sounds like something that's just such a like perfect not only pairing but trio that you're talking about, but the pairing we've been kind of focusing on. That sounds like a match made in heaven. So
Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for being here
yeah.
today.
Oh, thank you so much. This was fun. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Empowered Through Compassion. If you're looking for support on your own healing journey, we'd love to hear from you. My wife and I are both licensed social workers in Massachusetts, and together we co founded Empowered Through Compassion to offer grounded, compassionate space for therapy, supervision, and trauma informed couples work. You can learn more about what we offer on our website, www.empoweredthroughcompassion.com.